Welcome, my friends. This is Maniacal Incorporated. I've got my cap with two beer cans, two beer can holders on either side, and a straw coming out of each one. I've got my barbecue apron. It says "Kiss the Chef," but chef is crossed out, and under it says Chief of Staff. So kiss the Chief of Staff. Because we have a barbecue to attend. A barbecue with our son Frank at the residence of the President of Sordland. Oh, this is going to be fun. It was a Saturday afternoon, my first break from work in what felt like years, and we have to spend it with Frank, and the weather couldn't have been more perfect, trying to keep my mind off that meeting with Orso Hawker, and the event sparked by the Circass assassination. I lit the backyard on fire. Monica and Dina were out shopping for craft supplies, and I'd given the staff the day off. It was just myself and Frank. Oh dear God, no. I wasn't sure how he felt about me at this moment, but I didn't know how he felt about barbecued ribs, or I did know how he felt about barbecued ribs. Our cook had left some marinating in the refrigerator. Sure enough, as soon as Frank glimpsed the grill and the meat, he stepped outside to join me. He's probably looking for cigarettes. Well, look who's finally out of his room. Come to spend some quality time with your old man, have you? No, I've come to spend some quality time with some grilled ribs. Sure, if you can spend a few minutes out of your busy schedule. Children who talk back to their fathers don't get tasty, tasty ribs. I'm sorry, I haven't been around very often lately. But I'm happy to see you now. It's okay, Frank says. I know you've got the most stressful job in the country, and you've got to feed your family on top of it. Yeah, I have to run the country and then feed Frank ribs. We both chuckled. Here, let me try. He grabbed the fan and started quickly waving it over the coals. The fire roared to life. He turned to look at me with a grin on his face, as if he was expecting praise. Not bad. There's always room for improvement. Don't act like you've done something special, Frank. Let's destroy what little is left of this child's psyche. Not bad, son, not bad. Thank you, sir. It is in our utmost interest to fulfill our duties with precision. The grilling shall commence in exactly 1 minute and 32 seconds. That was a spot-on impersonation of Lucian. I was thinking the exact same thing as I was reading it. I was going to say somebody's been listening too much to Lucian. We looked at each other for a second, then burst out laughing. I realized my throat was parched. There was a 6-pack of beer in the kitchen. Why don't you bring us a couple of beers? Exactly. Go get some beers. He looked at me in disbelief. You mean I can, but Mom told me. Don't listen to your mother. I'm the president, and I will give you a pardon for illegally consuming alcohol underage. We cracked open the beers, clinked the bottles, and gazed out at the city skyline. For a moment, my thoughts flashed back to my childhood and my relationship with my own father. My father was a poor man who struggled to provide for us on his meager income. He put me to work on the farm long before I was Frank's age, and even then, we couldn't always make ends meet. Yet, we were always close as a family. Now that I was president, I knew Frank would never face the same hardships I had. I couldn't deny that I felt a bit jealous, goddamn Frank. Sponging off the state, literally. Go on, ask whatever you want. It's just, I feel like there's so much you've been hiding from me, about the past, about what's going on right now. Frank, my entire past was an 8-question questionnaire. I can't help you with anything else, man. Like at dinner that night after the ball, you told me everything was under control, but it wasn't, was it? I know what happened in the 20s, we learned all about it in school. Now, with the protests and the riots, is it going to be the same thing? Dad, is there going to be a civil war in Sordland? Probably. I hope not. He lets out a sigh. But what was it like back then? Uncle Peter said the two of you went through a lot. What Peter means is we went through a lot of alcohol. I'm not a kid anymore, you can tell me. Before I could gather my thoughts, the familiar images started flashing before my eyes. Images of soldiers advancing towards me and my friends, weapons drawn, of people I knew, friends and neighbours being dragged through streets and murdered in alleyways. The shock and grief on the faces of fathers, mothers and orphan children. Those were dark times. It seems like it, Frank says. But you're nearly a grown man. Let's talk about it. Over some ribs and beer. Let's talk about the Civil War over ribs and beer. Frank leaned forward in his chair, his eyes wide. We will tell him about the Civil War. It was right after I met your mother. We had both joined the same human rights group to push for change after the coup of 27. Eventually, I became convinced I wasn't doing enough, so I joined the Red Youth. We will tell him about the clash between Lutheran and Reichard. They started fighting against each other. It was a bloodbath. Nowhere was safe. So they were led by Maximist generals, or the Maximist General Lutheran and the Socialist General. So Frank shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. Dude, you're the one that asked. So we organised a protest in support of Reichard. In our minds, he was the better of the two and a true socialist. Did I run away? Oh no. Refrain from telling him about my escape, yeah. My son must remember me as a hero. Soldiers were waiting for us. I knew something was going to happen, something bad. We stood and fought, but many were arrested and shot. I trailed off, hoping Frank wouldn't ask for any more details. That's enough for today? It's okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked you about it. I know I didn't understand how easy my life is sometimes, or I know I don't understand how easy my life is sometimes. One more thing, though. I know that you joined the Red Youth back then. Do you mind if I ask why? Yes, I do mind. I don't want to talk about it. A communist revolution for Sordland was and still is the only way. I had to survive somehow in that environment, and I made a choice. So I don't think we're full-blown communists. And this is kind of too much in the opposite direction. As in, I have absolutely no belief in the socialist world order whatsoever. But I had to do something to survive. But that's probably the closest to the direction we're going in. I don't think we're going for a communist revolution. Frank raised his eyebrows, his curiosity still not satisfied. But sensing my reluctance to go on, he simply nodded. Sorry for bombarding... Frank, not now, not... Too soon, Frank. Sorry for bombarding you with questions. I know I complain sometimes, but my problems are nothing compared to what you went through. You're damn right, your generation will never understand. I'm here to listen to your problems, Frank, no matter what they are. Like a good president, I'm not going to do anything about them, but I'll definitely listen. The door unlocked. Dina and Monica's voices, and the sounds of rustling shopping bags filled the house. All right, I'll be upstairs until dinner. Good, Frank knows his place. I took a long sip from my beer, looking at the city and the now setting sun. I hoped that talking to Frank about my past had been the right decision. Part of me felt as if some sort of burden had been lifted, but I had the same nightmares again that night. I'm not going to lie, I am slightly terrified that our barbecue has generated 11 newspaper articles. So the Hall Sword Post is not impressed with the Green Act. Seems out of touch with the prevailing political climate in the country. Suggests a disconnect between policymakers and ordinary Swordish citizens. An attacker opened fire on protesters, 17 dead. A man opened fire in Vesord city centre during a protest march organised by the Communist Party of Sordland against the murder of Bernard Circasse. The attacker used a military-grade machine gun dated to 1929, which is suspected to be part of the inventory of the Swordish armed forces. The attacker killed himself right after shooting at 25 people, killing 16. He took out the weapon from the newsstand at the square, brandished it, and yelled, "Come, I will give you freedom," one witness said. So the highly charged word freedom was previously associated with Bludish separatists. Lelis Graf said that she had spoken to the chief of the Vesord police and asked him to take strict action. It's going to be very difficult for the government to ignore activity like that. I won't say ignore, but pretend that absolutely everything is going fine. The tourism bill signing deserves applause from Sordland today. Absolutely right. As do my barbecue rib grilling skills. Green, a threat to growth. So the Economist isn't happy with that either. While the proposed tax breaks for reducing environmental impact, as outlined in Section 2, appear attractive, they might not compensate for the costs of stricter regulation. Gazom in turmoil. A leadership crisis. So, recent financial distress facing Gazom, one of the pillars of Sordland's economy, highlights a glaring issue at its helm. Our investigation reveals a disconcerting narrative of mismanagement spearheaded by Ewald Alfonso, and the current CEO, known to maintain close ties with Minister Manger. Never heard of him. Gazom, formerly a beacon of economic prosperity, is now struggling under the weight of poor leadership. Rizian Oil and Gas expresses interest in Gazom. Are we going to have a scenario where Gazom collapses and we must either decide between a government buyout or allowing it to be purchased by Rizia? The Rizian corporate giants move could have, so this is Rizian Oil and Gas, could have significant implications for Sordland's domestic energy sector, which we have pretty much promised to try and keep in national control, so either internal Sordland companies or, if necessary, government control. But Rizia could provide an ally to us against Rumburg. And we have a derby between Gelsord and Anrika, one of the most anticipated matches, has been postponed because of intense protests in the city of Anrika. The league has issued the following statement regarding the situation. Due to safety reasons, the players are compromised during this time of trouble. We have decided to postpone the game. However, we stand in solidarity with the fans, our players, and the people of Anrika. So the mayor has said, it is a tragic day of Sordland, where the president himself refused to act in the face of communism. It is said that inaction breeds doubt and fear. Thus, I fear that the spread of communism has sown deeper inside the heart of the nation than we thought. However, I and the people of Anrika will never stop fighting for the soul of our great country. Curtin, are you criticizing? And you're a member of my own party. And you're criticizing me. He was appointed mayor in 1940. Later re-elected 3 times in a row, becoming the longest-serving mayor in the history of Sordland. Over the years, he became very popular among the Sordish nationalists and conservatives for his public speeches and accomplishments as mayor. He is considered to be a divil of the highest degree. The imperative Green Bill awaits signature. Proposed Green Act, championed by forward-thinking members of the Assembly, could be a transformative step for Sordland. The Act is signed, if signed by President Rain, would introduce stricter regulations on industrial pollution and waste disposal, providing a much-needed push towards environmental responsibility, especially with the tourism bill. We can't be letting... Imagine you just dump all the pollution into a lake and the algae takes over and eats the entire lake. Imagine if that happened. Wouldn't that be terrible? Wouldn't that be a terrible thing if that happened to a lake? All the algae just taken over and eaten the whole thing because of pollution and incompetence. That would be terrible. We can't let that happen. And look what it would do for tourism in the area. Sordland has an electoral threshold. So what's this? Undemocratic elections of Sordland. So the threshold means that any political parties that are under 10% of the vote can't enter the assembly. This is the very reason why the United Sordland Party holds 52% of the seats in the assembly today. It is also the reason why the largest ethnic minority of Sordland is non-existent in Sordish politics. Well, they seem to be fairly existent shooting up communist protests, so... CPS won around 8% of the general vote, but was eliminated. This means that millions of votes are not represented in our current government. They could just vote for my party, and then they'd be fine. And finally, Geopolitico, CSP's worker report under scrutiny. Oh, those communists. And Anrica broadens economic horizons. It's taking strategic steps towards diversifying its economic portfolio with a keen focus on investing in energy exporting nations. This approach not only indicates Anrica's intent to strengthen its economic stability, but also underlies its foresight in recognizing the burgeoning value of economic sectors worldwide because of all the data centers. Isn't that it? All the data centers that are consuming all the energy. My god, it's just like real life. A communist book burned in Boren. Local residents gathered thousands of books that they claimed to be spreading communist and Malinievist propaganda at the Century Park in Boren, and set the books on fire. Aggressive slogans targeting the Red Youth, the Workers' Party of Bludia, and the Communist Party of Sordland were shouted. Youth groups from the local party offices of the USP and NFP also joined in with the burning. The USP? Uh-oh. Young Swords and NFP flags burned in Erleroy. Legislative debate on the repeal of the EPA. The Grand National Assembly was the stage for a contentious debate over the proposed repeal of the Energy Protection Act. I'm not gonna lie, I thought we'd already repealed that. Arguments both for... No, it was the tourism thing we voted on. Arguments both for and against the repeal were put forth, with Franz Richter and the USP reformist wing leader, Albin Clavin, leading the faction advocating repeal. The United Sordland Party and National Front Party, under the leadership of Gloria Tori and Casero Kibbener, respectively, defended the act vehemently. Devils. We're trying to appeal to Gloria Tori. Isn't this my party? For a second I was like, wait a minute, is the United Sordland Party my party? Yeah, so Gloria Tori is leading conservative sections within our party against the EPA. I think we need to repeal the EPA. Well, if we repeal the EPA, that's going to open up the ability for the Rizia Oil and Gas to get a stronger ownership of Gazom. In Ireland, we had a thing called the Control of Manufacturers Act, which was brought in by Sean Lemass in the 30s during the Economic War. And it stipulated that Irish companies, for a company to operate in Ireland, it had to have majority Irish ownership. And this actually caused Guinness to move their headquarters from Dublin to London, because the overwhelming majority of their ownership was British. And there were a number of companies then that wouldn't set up in Ireland because they would have to have majority Irish ownership. And Arthur Cox, a legal expert, and a number of other people, came up with this idea, which Lemass was not very impressed with, but he couldn't do anything about, where you would have two categories of shares in a company, A class and B class. The A class were ownership, and the B class were dividend paying. And there'd be maybe like 10 A-class shares, which would be given out to 6 Irish people and 4 British people. And then 90% of the dividend-paying shares would go to non-nationals, to predominantly British or American owners of the company. So the company was technically Irish run. 6 of the 10 ownership shares belonged in Irish hands. Most likely those 6 people were then given the remaining 10% of the dividend shares to keep them on side. And that's kind of what we're looking at here, a small bit. Lemass was then responsible for getting rid of the Control of Manufacturers Act in the 50s, when we started to realize, oh, this is not a good idea, this is a bad idea. But it's just interesting to see that it's kind of a similar scenario. It's kind of a similar protectionist policy of prioritizing national ownership. The problem that we had was that we were heavily dependent on, and still are, heavily dependent on external investment and knowledge. We had no industrial base with which to build an industrial base. So we needed foreign investment, but the Control of Manufacturers Act was actively preventing that by basically saying companies must be majority Irish owned. So you can see good points to both. If the companies are majority Irish owned, the majority of the profits stay in Ireland. But for a nation with no industrial base and very little money and very little credit to access to credit, it kind of stood in the way of any growth. So we're kind of facing something similar here. The L1 Railway has reported that it's been progressing well. Well, that's surprising. Started laying the foundations of the ground retaining walls, bridges and tracks. Project supervisors from the government confirmed the report, saying that most of the preliminary work has already been done. Fantastic. Good news at last. USP report on reforms. Alban Clavin and the reformist wing of the party clarified their demands from the government in the party congress. For the upcoming constitutional reform, Alban Clavin stated that without ministry reforms, they won't be able to stand behind the new reform package. Recession hits farmers again. As per the latest news from Lackavin, the farming industry has taken another hit as a result of the... What recession? There are reports that 16% of all wheat in Lackavin is rotting in barns due to lack of buyers. Farmers are requesting additional funds from the government. I gave funds to businesses. Morna. Industrial output concerns. The mayor of Morna has reported that their industrial output numbers for the year are 12% lower than last year. They are requesting additional support. Everyone wants additional support to improve their industrial capacity, including machinery and personnel, to combat the downward trend. With the construction of several new factories in Morna, the mayor stated his belief that an economic upturn in the city is still possible if government investment succeeds. According to current projections, Morna is set to lose an additional 2% of industrial output next year. So why are you building more factories? Narble reports lack of hospitals. On top of capacity issues, it was also noted that the facilities are still largely using outdated technology. This is too real for me. I can't deal with this right now. This is too real in modern Ireland. Bludish resistance in sanctuaries. Bergian security forces have arrested 3 priests at 2 different Nurity sanctuaries in Sarna after finding links to insurgent activities. The report came from an elderly man who wanted to pray in peace, but instead found himself invited to join the Bludish Freedom Front by a state-sanctioned priest. Further incidents indicate that the BFF is pushing for a local recruitment drive in different sanctuaries across the region. Yeah, I bet you do. Rizia advocates for energy partnership, has extended a co-investment proposal for Sordland's ambitious Gazom energy venture. King Romus emphasized the bilateral benefits of such a cooperation and its potential in bolstering the region's energy security. He also stressed that this collaborative venture could form the bedrock of a stronger economic alliance, further binding our nations. If I have half the company, will you take half the company? Would you be happy with that? The ATO pledges financial and military aid to Agnolia. The Arcassian Treaty Organization has committed significant financial and military aid to Agnolia. Located in the heart of eastern Mercopa, a region rife with geopolitical complexities, and Rumburg, Agnolia stands at the crossroads of economic challenges and potential security threats from Rumburg and Valgsland. This aid package is designed to enhance Agnolia's economic stability and bolster its military capabilities. What military capabilities? Fortifying it against possible CSP advances, and further, I think Rumburg is the one that they need to be worrying about. As part of the ATO's larger goal to secure its capitalist allies against the spread of socialism, this assistance displays the ATO's commitment to securing its member nations in its time of need. We have a riot in the Antel Rock prison, which was eventually suppressed. Ward C is generally used for keeping political prisoners, and the riot started when a warden was killed by a Bludish political prisoner. 4 guards and 21 prisoners died, 134 were injured, and we're back to book burnings in Boren. What an adventure that was. What an adventure. We still have something at Narble. So we have a presidential visit to Narble. Did I agree to this? Is this the one that I agreed to a while back? And we have... Did we not have something in Hallsword? Do we have a report? Or maybe that was one of the reports that I read into something? So let's bring what little we have left over from the barbecue to Narble. I was travelling to the snow-covered city of Narble in the Nargis region for the Rural Development Forum organised by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. The mountainous city was infamously one of Sordland's poorest. It had a gritty edge, and its people were hardy and wary. Even after the discovery of gas and oil in the area, years of neglect by the central government were apparent. On the buildings and the general infrastructure, the natural resources were now under the control of Gazom, which elevated the corporation to a place of power. My task in this forum was mainly symbolic: fake smiles and handshakes with oil barons, meeting with local politicians, but most importantly of all, making sure that Narble did not feel like it was forgotten by the government. The scenery so far, however, was a reflection of Narble's neglect. The main roads to the city were not maintained well. There were many bumps and empty, discoloured spots in the asphalt. Navigating and swerving to avoid the inconveniences, our motorcade finally started nearing the city. As if my discomfort from the bumpy ride was apparent to him, Serge rolled down the partition window. We will be arriving at Hotel West in a few minutes, sir. Thanks for letting me know. Anytime, it's my duty. After a moment, Serge started to smile under his moustache. How's life, Serge? Sir, I just want to say, it's been great these last 2 months. As you know, my wife Susan recently gave birth to our son, and now my daughter has started at a very good high school in Hallsword. Get ready, Serge, because life is about to become a lot busier. That's great news, Serge. I'm happy for you. I appreciate it, sir. Truly. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to afford a good private school if she scored less in the entrance exams, but I shouldn't have made my insecurity get to me. Erica outsmarts me all the time. I'm very proud to have a daughter like her. Just on a very slight aside, I've started playing Disco Elysium again for the first time in... I did a playthrough of it. The date was released. Well, over the next couple of days. And I played a small bit of it last year for the 5th anniversary. I think last year was 5 years since it was released. It was. And I've started a run again just recently, and this has reminded me of a kind of a random encounter, not really a random encounter, you have with Leo, the dock worker, just outside Everett's container. And he talks about this lawyerly woman that Everett sent to get an education. 4 years she was gone. And just suddenly he dumps on you that if me and my wife could have a child, I wouldn't mind if she ended up like Lizzie. But my wife can't have a child. The Dr. such and such said so, and she knows a thing or two. It's just this really sad moment. And so here's another kind of member of the working class, delighted with the family that has risen up around them. And again, it was just in relation to the dreams that both of those men, Serge and Leo, have for their daughters. Serge for his daughter who has gotten into school, and Leo for the daughter that he'll never have. So again, it's pretty much Disco Elysium would be the reason that I'm playing games like this. Now, I do plan to take a look at disco-likes in air quotes, which of course the team at Torpor Studios are working on, a disco-like set in this universe. We say disco-like in air quotes because it's good for advertising, but I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like, what the kind of RPG set in this world. I don't know if it's in Sordland, I'm not too sure. There seems to be DLC coming out in a ton of places. Anyway, a slight aside. Pour one out for the working class. Pour one out for social democracy. I also hope that Dina will grow to be like her mother someday. So that means she must have gotten the smarts from her mother. I do not value insecurity in my employees. We'll say I hope. We're not gonna insult the man. I'm sure she will, sir. After all, she is the daughter of a lion and a lioness. My daughter looks up to the First Lady for inspiration, and it's not just limited to my daughter, sir. She is an inspiration for almost any woman in the country. But at the same time, it must be hard for the First Lady as well. All this attention adjusting to the new high-profile life, and a husband that has great responsibility. It's hard for both of us. Serge, I suffer as well. It must be, sir. We sometimes forget the important people in life between all the responsibility and rush. You know, those we care for... Huh? Yes, Serge, I get it. Of course, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. So he's not sorry cop, but he's sorry driver. He's unlocked the sorry driver achievement. There was a long... I should have said... I didn't mean to be... mean. Serge, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Have I told you, sir, we named my son George. The doctor said he is very healthy, and thankfully so is my wife. That's good. I hope the hospital had a good service. Normally, we would have been treated in one of the suburban hospitals, but thanks to the special coverage of the presidential staff, we were transferred to Emerald State Hospital. Glad I could help. You should have named the child after me. Emerald State is a great hospital. The equipment and the staff were exceptional. Serge sighed. I've already started thinking about their university education, especially Erica. I want to send her to a good private school, but with the current state of the economy, it's going to be hard. Serge, I'm doing my best. We will fix the economy, one way or another. If anyone can, that's you, Mr. President. The car hit another major pothole and a bump which lifted us up in our seats for a second. Are you fine? Yes, sir. I hope the car is fine too. The motorcade began approaching the hotel. The Hotel West was supposedly the best hotel in Narble. The large 25-story main building was undoubtedly one of the taller and more expensive buildings in the city. It towered over the nearby slums and had been a target for protests when it was first built. A crowd has gathered in front of the hotel with the welcoming committee at its centre. As we approached the red-carpeted entrance, I could see the mayor of Narble and his top aides. Serge got out of the car and opened the door. He bowed his head respectfully and gestured towards the entrance. Thank you. Have a good day, Mr. President. I always do, Serge. I always do. Almost immediately, everyone present in the crowd flocked over to me with an excessive display of courtesy, smiles and handshakes while I donned the mask of a politician. A mask that I was very used to. Oh god, what are they going to say about me in the newspapers today? Protests appear calmer. Nationwide protests persist, albeit with a slight reprieve in tension across some cities. Isolated incidents of violence were reported on Monday night in a few major cities, notably Dyer and Lackavin, amidst the prevailing unrest. As per data from the state press, the authorities have made approximately 9,800 arrests. Hell's bells. Glad everything's under control. Education privatization proven successful. Magnus Carthus. God damn it. I actually thought that was a person's name, but it's not. It's a company, but still. Our editorial team immediately analysed the SEPA report, recently revealed to assess the standards of education. We were curious to see how the policies of the last decade have been changing the performance metrics. Lesbia, specifically, stood out with a jump of 6 positions forward to 5th out of 68. We just need one more. After a research and analysis collaboration with the Vice President of Magnus Cartus and the SMEA chapter leader of OMEC, the Organisation for Merkopen Economic Development, we gained critical insights into how Lesbia increased its education quality. It boils down to 2 points. One is the privatization efforts led by the Prime Minister. What's the second one? The allowance of minor curricular changes for private institutions that led to major improvements in student participation, teacher happiness, and boosted the performance of AI. Is it basically students can use AI, teachers can use AI to write the tests, students can use AI to do the tests, teachers can use AI to score the tests. Is that it? Is that it? Soll needs to answer for his crimes. All he did was talk to somebody in a boat. Oh, you mean the Isam incident. Shocking misogynist rally. Every day we are appalled by how deep the roots of misogyny goes in our country. We are appalled again when yesterday, during a protest by the Sordland League of Women, counter-protesters showed up to disrupt the peaceful rally. What about when people shot on a Communist Party rally? Labour Union Rights March. A large group of Labour Union members gathered around the city of Valgan to protest against the poor condition of worker rights in Sordland. People could be seen holding signs pleading for accountability and basic rights in corporate work environments. Until somebody sends me a sheet of paper to sign, my hands are tied. Hard to disagree that the time for labour reform is long due. Albin Clavin of the reformist wing of the USP has seen the potential and announced that work will begin, or has begun, to explore what can be achieved. Well, there you go. Just give me a sheet of paper and I'll sign it. Won't even read it, I swear. So that's the briefing. I presume we're entering. Do we have... We have a report on the Young Swords terrorist attack. 1646 on Monday, a terror attack occurred in the Vesord city centre during a rally by the left-wing CPS. The attacker, suspected to be working with the Young Swords or another organisation connected to them, opened fire with an automatic rifle on protesting civilians. 17 people were killed, including the attacker who shot himself afterwards. So this is the guy who shouted out freedom, which is associated with the Bludish movement. So I wonder, is he trying to frame the Bloods? Because I can't imagine the Young Swords and the Bloods working together. PFJP report on reforms. Franz Richter recently outlined their demands, leader of the PFJP. For the reform package, he declared that without the implementation of term limits and limited decrees, it would be very difficult for him and his party to stand behind the reform package. When Ireland was when putting together the 37 Constitution, there was talks about term limits. And the general argument by the government was, if the people keep voting for them, they just keep putting them in. Just keep letting them run. It's up to the people to vote people out if they don't want them there. So I don't know if we'd support term limits. The presidential palace has a fantastic barbecue. I don't know if Anton Rain wants to give it up. I arrived at the meeting room for my talk with Kira and Pascal. Before beginning, I took a moment to appreciate the view from the balcony. The mountains of Narble were completely covered with snow. While I was mesmerized by the scenery, Pascal Bennywall walked up to me. He is an author and government official who serves as the Minister for Health, Social Affairs and Labour. A member of the USP since 42. Began in 49 his career when Ewald Alfonso appointed him to the Sordland Civil Service Commission. Elected to the Assembly in 45, initially a supporter of Ewald Alfonso's programs, Pascal eventually turned against the free market reforms and the president's management of them, stating that it drained badly needed resources away from welfare programs. He gave his support to Anton Rein in 53 and was appointed as minister after the elections. My Minister of Health was, ironically, somewhat portly, having gained a few pounds since his breakthrough as a best-selling writer, but his authority on social affairs could not be questioned. Such a spectacular view. Pascal, don't try and flirt with me. Kira Walda, the Minister for Education, joined us on the balcony, dressed in a sky blue pantsuit. Her preference for trousers over dresses had made her the subject of much palace gossip, but it didn't seem to bother her in the slightest. How dare she? Joined the USP to campaign for Anton Rein's candidacy in an effort to reform the governing body of the party. She was appointed as a minister after the elections. She became a member of the USP before the 53 elections, so first day on the job, basically. First day on the job, she's made Minister for Education. Now, spectacular indeed, but if you look in the opposite direction, you will see that Soll's decades of neglect did to the city. You will see what they did. Most of the people living in Narble are workers, farmers, and their wives and children. They are breaking their backs for close to no pay, all thanks to greedy corporations. We can't really blame the companies, that's just how they work. My intention is to help the working class. I am glad we see eye to eye on the issue, says Kira Walda. If you look past the view, you can see the real problems like poverty. Pascal nodded gravely. This was a subject he knew quite a bit about himself. His best-known books were about the plight of Sordland's less fortunate, drawing from his own past, growing up in squalor. Well put, Miss Walda. I don't need to tell you about my own experiences with poverty, and you've been through similar hardships yourself, Mr. President. We have all gone through difficult times. True. But some lives are more difficult than others, like ours was, and still is for hundreds of thousands in Sordland. You don't have to have been born poor to sympathize with the plight of the impoverished, much as you don't have to have been born a woman to recognize Sordland's need for parity among the sexes. Parity among the sexes shouldn't be our first priority. Look at how many high-ranking female politicians our country has. Too many, says Pascal. Appearances can be deceiving, Pascal. Her voice sounded bitter. Think about how Lilas Graff got her current position. I don't necessarily believe the rumors about her and Soll, but she never could have risen so high if she didn't parrot his cause. Kira, you joined the party to campaign for Anton Rein's candidacy. You were then immediately appointed as minister after the elections. Kira, what a pot kettle nepotism. Gloria Tory. Is it an accident that the first female assembly speaker is such a staunch conservative? And then there was Alfonso's habit of promoting women to prominent positions to give Sordland a progressive sheen, while accomplishing nothing in reality. While women in places like Narble are denied any opportunity to advance, the government can use a handful of female politicians from wealthy families, myself included, to pretend their only obstacle to success is their own lack of initiative. Meanwhile, those of us who don't use our clout to help powerful men stay in power are denigrated as angry spinsters. I ask you, Mr. President, does anyone care that your strategist, Mr. Gallade, doesn't have a wife? Kira, what are you suggesting? I've been wondering about that accident. Actually, leave Lucian out of this. Only me and Frank can make fun of Lucian. You have veered very badly off topic, Miss Walda. Mr. Benewall asked. I answered. You brought all this up. As I was saying, isn't it about time Halsord addressed this country's real issues, rather than bowing to the wishes of the hawks and fearmongers in the establishment and diverting yet more resources to the military and law enforcement? Frank asked me if there was going to be a civil war, and I now think there is, and it's going to be the women who start it. Our welfare, healthcare, and education systems have been decaying since the recession. Sordland's poorer communities are losing hope. Hopelessness and a lack of opportunities can drive people to extreme solutions. We're seeing increased crime, domestic violence, and yes, rising inequality between men and women. Lilas Graff, who only got her job because of rumours of a relationship with herself and Soll, will take care of crime. She's an expert on the subject. Because Soll is a criminal and she's taking care of Soll. These issues must be tackled from different directions. We need to engage it holistically. If only we could stop the recession, create jobs and growth. The capital must be prioritised towards the resources that matter most. I'm going to go with Hells Bells. Where did crime come from in all this? We're seeing increased crime, domestic violence, and yes, raising inequality. These issues must be tackled from different directions. We need to engage in it holistically. Absolutely meaningless gibberish statement. Fantastic. Print it, put in the papers. I'm planning to help by using an increased budget to improve the quality of healthcare, Pascal says. That could prove useful, but we need to be doing a lot more. Education has similar issues. There is another subject I want to mention, says Pascal. I have been working on improving the rights of workers in our country and have proposed a draft bill that is currently being reviewed by our party. Lads, I just wanted to look at the scenery. Mr. Claven has already backed me and given his support, I'm sure he has, to Sordland. Sordland has fallen behind most countries on the subject, and it is my responsibility to ensure that this is not the case. Orso Hawker, I don't think he mentioned Claven, but he's put it into my head now that Claven is trying to take over the party. We need to improve the standards for our workers. There is always room for improvement, and it is good to hear that you are pushing for it. We shouldn't upset the businesses. Sounds like a costly bill. There is always room for improvement. I appreciate the kind words, Mr. President. I will not let you down. It's also a matter of life and death. Oh, Kira, stop it. Every decade we hear of some horrific incident or accident due to employers' disregard for their workers' safety. So, will you back the bill when it arrives on your desk, Mr. President? To make a decision, I would need to read the newspapers. Understandable. You will receive all the sections in an outline. It's getting a little cold out here. Shall we continue our discussion indoors? It's a very interesting system that they have here, where the president doesn't really do anything. The bills come from the ministers under them. So the president appoints the ministers create the bills, and then pass them to the president. And it's up to the president to decide. So power isn't centralized in the presidency. And I've actually just started reading a book called, is it Gareth versus Charlie, or is it Charlie versus Gareth? I can't remember. It's by Eoin O'Malley, whose father was Desi O'Malley. So Charlie Haughey was the leader of Fianna Fáil, who kicked Desi O'Malley out of the party, and Desi went off and formed the Progressive Democrats. And then Gareth Fitzgerald, was the leader of Fine Gael. So it's a book about the leadership backwardsing and forwardsing between Charlie Haughey of Fianna Fáil and Gareth Fitzgerald of Fine Gael. But Eoin O'Malley points out that prior to Haughey, this is how the Irish government functioned. The Taoiseach was basically, the Taoiseach's office was a post office, is how he describes it, where it basically coordinated the activities of the ministers. But from Haughey onwards, Haughey centralised power in the Taoiseach, and the Taoiseach became the prime driver of decision-making. So the scenario that we're kind of seeing here is something similar, according to Eoin O'Malley, something similar to what you would have seen in Ireland prior to Haughey, because it's a very unusual, I found it very unusual, how basically I just get these things handed to me and it's like, what the hell is this? The Minister for Education wants to do what? But apparently, yeah, this is the way. And there is a lot of talk about there being this kind of ever greater centralisation from the 70s onwards. Across the world, in a number of political systems, you see this kind of centralisation of power in the leadership, but you also see the emergence of quangos, which have dramatically decreased the ability of government to function. And I know Micheál Martin, the current Irish Taoiseach, was talking to Keir Starmer, or he said he was talking to Keir Starmer at one stage, and that Starmer said to him that if they want to build a turbine, it will take 11 years. Because of all the groups and committees and discussions it has to go through. So prior to Haughey's day, across the world, things would have happened a lot faster. Decision-making would have been much faster. But we're kind of seeing it here a small bit. There's committee meetings like crazy, but the committees are coming back very quickly with actions. That's partially because of the way that the game functions. But from the 70s onwards, across the world, you're seeing basically committee, death by committee. Anyway, the meeting room was already prepared for state business. Small gifts for each of us had been placed on the table by the municipality. We took our seats. I don't want to listen to Kira right now. Let's start with your health overview, Pascal. As you wish, Mr. But look at the smile on him, he's delighted. Sordland has a free healthcare system, except for a few private hospitals operating under it. Most of the populace receives adequate treatment. Health issues primarily appear in rural areas due to a lack of quality services, such as Narble, where they were complaining about it there recently. I'm doing my best to ensure that citizens of all ages receive the best healthcare they can. I also personally want to solve our high infant and maternal mortality problem. How many doctors and nurses are employed? How many hospital beds are there per 1,000 or per 10,000 citizens? There are 10 beds per 10,000 citizens. Compared to most of our neighbours, this is a very good number. Our amount of beds is higher than the countries of Agnolia, that doesn't say much, and Wayland, that also doesn't say much, but obviously we can't match Lesbia or Valgsland. Agnolia and Wayland should hardly be used, yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same, as a standard, but it is good to know that we aren't in a massive health crisis. Yet. What's the life expectancy and mortality rates? Life expectancy is 65. Infant mortality rate is 120. Oh god, I thought it was 121%, and I was like, what? 121 per 1,000, while our maternal mortality is 5 per 1,000. I assure you that we are doing everything we can to save mothers and their newborns. Those numbers are saddening. Those numbers are crazy. We must do everything we can. We are working very hard on improving the quality of the services. How many doctors and nurses? It's fantastic. I can ask as many questions as I want, and there's no ticker going down in the corner. I'm kind of pulling myself out of Disco Elysium mentality. There's no ticker going down. working towards the end of the day. We have 31,594 doctors and 73,680 nurses working for the Ministry of Health. This is a high number. What I think is we fire all the women? I don't want to be rude, but out of those numbers, how many are in urban and rural areas? Good point, Kira. Pascal? The data shows that per 10,000 people in urban areas, there are about 11 doctors, while in rural areas, there are only 3. In other words, rural citizens with medical emergencies have to wait an embarrassingly long time before they are treated. Thank you, Pascal. Your in-depth briefing is much appreciated. I want to hear about the education system. With pleasure. Swordish education is free, but we have a very outdated system that I want to reform. The other important issue is the lack of access to education in rural areas, especially for young girls. Your administration has the power to solve both problems. My highest priority is to get enough funding to be able to build schools in rural areas, while I cleanse our educational system of its nationalistic indoctrination and sexist teachings. Can't we just let the church build schools? Just let the church do it. That's... What could possibly go wrong? In 1940... Yeah, another crazy story. 1940... Was it 48? De Valera was dumped out? And the hodgepodge intergovernment coalition came in, the inter-party coalition. So Richard Mulcahy was the leader of the largest party, Fine Gael, but he could not form the coalition because Sean McBride of Clon na Poblachta would not accept him as Taoiseach because Mulcahy had basically executed people that McBride knew during the Civil War. So this is how much people hated De Valera. These two hated each other, but they were prepared to come together to kick De Valera out of office. Anyway, so Mulcahy, in fairness to him, you have to give him credit, said, yeah, sure, I will step back. I will remain as Fine Gael leader, but John A. Costello will be nominated by us as Taoiseach. Mulcahy became Minister for Education, and he said that his job as Minister for Education was to go down into the basement and tap on the pipes. By which he meant that his job was to, stay out of the way of the church from running education. That was the church's remit. His job was to just make sure everything was functioning, but he didn't interfere. Kira, would you support that? Would you just give everything to the church? Let the church run education? How many students and teachers do we have? Currently, there are about 5 million students, 3 million in primary education, 1 million in secondary, and 1 million in tertiary. That's... there's the same amount in secondary. That's impressive. Wait, what is this? Oh yeah, students. There are 155,000 teachers. Sordland is full of young and bright minds. Pascal, shut up. We should keep striving to make education available for all. Our country is indeed full of potential. Oil potential. I think there needs to be a change in what is being thought. We should help children to ask questions and educate themselves. But children are stupid. How the hell can children educate themselves? Children are stupid. What is the literacy rate of Sordland? It's 80%. This is a very good indicator for future growth. But it needs to increase. It is also far lower among girls than boys. If I remember correctly, the most illiterate areas are Bergia and England. So that's the heavily bluish area, if I am correct. It's known by its old bluish name, Bludia. Ooh. And then England is the poor old devils up in that direction. That is correct. says Kira, although Lackavin skews the statistics for the Nargis region, which also has a vast number of illiterate citizens. This underlines my point about the lack of access to education. Tell me about the difference between urban and rural education. Urban children think milk comes from a carton. Rural children know that milk comes from the bull tank in the yard that the cows are milked into. Urban areas have 3 times the number of schools per 10,000 people compared to rural areas. Wait, say that again? Urban areas have 3 times the number of schools per 10,000 people compared to rural areas. Rural areas also suffer from a lack of teachers. I can imagine teachers not preferring desolate areas. That's not a very good ratio. Yeah, let's insult the farmers. Salaries for teachers are very low here. We need to increase their pay to give them more incentive. Thank you, Kira. I can fill in the blanks. Kira stood up and moved towards the window. She took a deep breath. Kira, have you thought about smiling more often? What is it, Kira? I hope both of you are preparing your reform plans for the improvement. What is it, Kira? Look at this impoverished city. The streets full of potholes, the hospital barely functioning, the school half open. This is not just about Soll or even Alfonso failing. This decay in Sordland's forgotten regions has been going on for many decades due to structural corruption, which is fueled by capitalism. Nonsense, Kira. I'm not a capitalist and I'm corrupt. Tarquain Soll did more for this country than any of us. Let's not get into ideological debate. We need to focus on the issue. That's, yeah, pretty much. No, we're not going asking Pascal what he thinks. One cannot be separated from the other, Mr. Rain. The issues stem from the ideology. She sat down and sighed. One way or another, we need to change, or we need change in Sordland. Greed and unchecked capitalism will not magically provide for the people. Tell me more about your plans, Kira. My plans require an increase in the government budget. I aim to solve the problems we highlighted with the allocated money. By building schools in these less fortunate rural areas and through fundamental change to the education system, I will unlock the potential of all our children, boys and girls alike. Interesting. I thought our problem was with the quality of education in Sordland as a whole. Improving the situation in rural areas is indeed a good idea. We are going to have to put some money into the rural environments. The Nargis region, I think we've left behind a bit, haven't we? Because we're investing in one of the larger regions. Yeah, we'll have to. It's an investment in the future of Sordland. Imagine unlocking the full, untapped potential of our youth, the knowledge and wealth they will generate. Yeah, but children are stupid. Wouldn't a promotion of private education help create additional funds? Both of us slammed the table. Not now, Pascal. Yes, but at what cost? I'm not a supporter of the private sector in education. At the end of the day, they are focused on profit first. What are you working on, Pascal? Oh, another book, mister. Oh, you don't mean my book. I personally want to improve the low quality of healthcare in the rural areas, so I created draft plans to increase the salary of doctors and to upgrade the equipment of the hospitals. I like the second part. I can do more with an increased budget, can't we all? Pascal, can't we all? Additionally, a privatization plan to promote private investment in the healthcare system could allocate extra funds. I personally promised that our health systems were to be improved in our term. I fully support you, Pascal. Did I? Isn't access to healthcare in rural areas an issue? Improving the quality of healthcare in less fortunate areas should be... Well, if I personally promised... This is one of the reasons I'm optimistic about the upcoming budget debates. With enough funds, we can build new hospitals and expand the quality of our services. I do hope to create competition and increase the quality of healthcare within the privatization effort. But you must realize, says Kira, that privatizing our healthcare system would increase the price of treatment and make access worse for the average citizen. Besides, it wouldn't fit into the planned economy President Rain has decided to promote. My expectation from our government is that we understand the focus on the needs of the people. Somebody's remit is now going into the realm of health. What kind of support did this woman give us during the election? We are elected representatives of our people, and we will prioritize their needs. There are more significant issues that we need to focus on. I appreciate your briefing and plans. We will reconvene at the budget meeting. Minister Walda, I have bailed out people in need instead of businesses, did I? Trust me, my priorities are correct. I thought I supported business. Oh no, I gave money to the people to buy crypto. I mean, not buy crypto. So yeah, we've already... Yeah, I know my priorities. We're elected representatives. That's reassuring to hear, says Pascal. I don't want to sound cynical, but almost all governments keep making the same promises. We must show we are different through our actions. Did we cover all the necessary subjects? Yes, Kira, we did. One more thing, says Pascal. I wish to raise my concerns about your scheduled meeting with the Gazom chairman and former president, Mr. Alfonso. I forgot about this. You're the first person to not call him President Alfonso as well, which is quite nice. By negotiating with Alfonso and his company, you have an opportunity to secure better labor conditions for blue-collar Gazom employees. This could be a triumph for all of Narble. What is there to negotiate, Pascal? The standards for Gazom workers are already at rock bottom. President Rain can and must demand better. Nevertheless, it's worth acknowledging the corporation's significant contributions to job creation in Narble and other poverty-stricken regions. Persuading the chairman to make concessions might prove to be a formidable task. I don't think the chairman even has a chair. I'd say at this stage. I have a feeling Alfonso is going to be trying to negotiate the most profitable Rizia takeover that he can. My foremost priorities lie in improving the economy. Once that is achieved, upward mobility will naturally follow suit. What good is job creation if the workers are treated poorly? I know how slippery Alfonso can be. Bringing this up with him will indeed be a challenge. If we do this right, we can find a solution that advances both the economy and the interests of laborers. Sure. That would be quite the impressive feat. You'd make headlines for. I have a feeling I'm going to make headlines one way or another. The matter is close to my heart. I would personally be grateful if you are able to resolve the concerns raised by Catherine Horton and her fellow Labour representatives. Swordish Labour leader, politician and activist of Bluedish descent. A member of the Assembly of the current spokesperson of the Labour Union of Sordland. 53 elections, she ran as an independent and was elected to be a member of the Assembly. How are these independents getting in, but the parties that get under 10% aren't? It would be difficult to imagine a CEO like Alfonso giving benefits to workers without him personally gaining from it. Considering our need for greater energy security, we might find ourselves forced to collaborate with him. Gazom relies on us just as much as we rely on them. Gazom has profited from the labour of the workers for far too long. They rely on us just as much as we rely on them. Path to compromise. The middle way often sways perilously close to the status quo. We must ensure that any negotiations genuinely benefit the people and not just uphold the interests of corporate giants. Thank you for your input, Kira, but I will stress to President Rain how important it is that the door to dialogue remains open. That's the nicest way of telling her to shut up. Ideology should never get in the way of bringing about tangible, lasting change. I'm skeptical about these discussions with Gazom, that they will lead to any meaningful change. I'm encouraged by the willingness of Mr. Manger and Mr. Alfonso to meet with me. It's a step forward. He has to meet with me. He's a government minister. I can't promise anything for either of you. I've got to get a grasp on the situation at Gazom first. That's what I'm going to say. Because, yeah, we've no idea what's going on there. We shall keep you no longer. Thank you both for the discussions. I do hope we won't repeat the same mistakes again and again. Have a good day, Mr. President. The mistake of making you a government minister, is that it? The ministers left, and I prepared to leave for other official business in the city. The Gazom meeting was just one of the many events I was scheduled to attend over the next few days. Is Kira the Minister for Education? I was going to bring this up. Norma Foley was made Minister for Education on her first day in the Dole. Like, literally elected and then made Minister for Education. So, first time... I think she ran in previous elections, but it was her first time getting elected. As I made my way out, the weather was noticeably cold, but it didn't stop a group of USP supporters from coming out to cheer us on the streets. By looking at the citizens' attire, it was easy to understand the current state of Narble. Some people were wearing clothes a few sizes too large. Some kids did not even have shoes, yet there was hope in their eyes. They were excited to see their president in their city. It's an absolute terror. When you go into a meeting, talk to a few people, you come out, there's 11 newspaper reports, there's 17 people dead, there's terrorist attacks across the place. Fantastic. When there's just one thing, preserving national sovereignty, the EPA stands for now. The Grand National Assembly has demonstrated resounding commitment to Sordland's economic independence. The proposed repeal of the Energy Protection Act of 1932, a cornerstone of our national autonomy, was effectively defeated. The stalwart defence of our sovereignty by Gloria Tori and Casaro Kibbener is commendable. Speaking of disco likes, that is a face that looks like it's out of Travel by Night, the cultist simulator Book of Hours inspired RPG. That is a man who has seen through the secret histories. That's a man who has seen things that never were, and never will be. We have some reports. Young Swords member found decapitated. Okay, never mind, it wasn't a great meeting. The Estord Police Department has found a decapitated body in an abandoned house where the victim was later identified as Kurg Linke, a high school teacher. Oh, this is bad for the teacher numbers. This is going to make things even worse in rural areas. And member of the local Young Swords Cultural Centre. The victim was discovered to be tortured with hot iron rods before his tongue was cut out. Police suspect the Red Youth were responsible for the incident. The incident has not been made public. Repeal of the Energy Protection Act of 32 fails. Put to a vote in the Assembly. Albin Clavin supported it, despite strong advocacy from the reformer factions of the PFJP and beyond. The majority of the Assembly, led by the USP and NFP, voted 179 to 71 against repeal, so it remains in force, maintaining the status quo of foreign ownership restrictions of energy companies in Sordland. The result concludes the current attempt to modify the foreign ownership regulations, but does not preclude further legislative efforts. Casaro Kibbener, leader of the NFP, has announced today that the NFP is completely against any threshold reform. He specifically emphasized that this would lead to unwanted elements entering the Assembly, and that he is outright against any change to the 10% threshold. Workers' Rights Act of 54, proposed by Albin Clavin and supported by Pascal Benewal, is being prepared for the first draft review. Voices from the Labour Union showed strong signs of support. The people that form the backbone of the Swordfish economy will finally be fully protected by extensive laws, Catherine Horton said. Receiving both cheers and boos. Morble mine disaster. A coal mine has collapsed in Morble. Emergency response teams were dispatched immediately. Due to the sheer size of the disaster, additional manpower and supplies were requested from nearby cities. Initial investigations show that an underground fire has started due to the neglect in the working situations by the Nidem mining group. Death toll is 82 and counting. So it's one of the big four largest companies in Sordland. Nationalized in 1933, its largest extracted resources are coal, gold, and diamonds, which generate high profit margins. The Contanin. CSP leaders discuss Helgeland. Discussions revisited the Agnolian annexation of the island during Valgsland's revolution in the 1920s, emphasizing the alliance's commitment to addressing historical missteps and securing a future that respects the rights and aspirations of all the island's inhabitants. It's going to be tough for Agnolia to claim that they should get places back from Rumsburg. I know they're not making those claims, but if they're randomly annexing islands, then it's going to be tough for them to kind of claim, hey, we're being bullied by Rumsburg. The summit also highlighted the CSP's strategic ability to navigate an increasingly complex geopolitical environment shaped by the growing influence of the ATO. Leaders stressed the critical importance of dialogue, dialogue and cooperation to prevent further escalation in the delicate situation surrounding Helgeland. They confirmed the contingency plans are in place, ensuring that Valgsland, as a key member of the Alliance, would receive full support should the circumstances require it. Meeting concluded with a collective affirmation of the CSP's determination to uphold peace and stability. Leaders emphasized their intention to approach the Helgeland issue with a diplomatic but firm stance, addressing its historical complexities while applying necessary pressure. I think the fairest thing to do is give it to me. Labour strike at Gazom. Duration of the strike and the potential impact on Narbel's local economy are currently uncertain. CPS and LUS strike against Gazom. Communist Party of Sordland and the Labour Union of Sordland have organised a strike against... I thought it was strike as in a military strike. And Arcasia builds military base in Lesbia. So, Dwight Walker visited Lesbia last week to engage in talks with Prime Minister Alvarez concerning the establishment of Arcasian military bases within Lesbia. Following the conclusion of the discussions, an agreement was reached between the two leaders regarding a significant military defence investment in Lesbia. So as part of the agreement, a large military base will be constructed on Ravnos Island. The base will be equipped with Arcasian radar and anti-air systems for enhanced security. Additionally, plans to deploy a dozen M3 ballistic missiles. The base is expected to accommodate approximately 200 strategic bombers and jet fighters, along with an estimated 20,000 Arcasian soldiers. So they're out there. Divils. Diplomatic mission to Alderan. I think we have 2 of them. Doesn't seem to have massively started. And we have a meeting with Minister Magner and President Alfonso of Gazom. After a series of intense meetings with Kira, which Pascal also attended, I decided to take some much-needed time to recharge. I checked in with Lucien and Peter back at the capital. They were working hard to unite democratically leaning reformers for the crucial task of drafting a new constitution. Meanwhile, Gus Manger had invited me to visit the Gazom headquarters in Narble. It was situated in Ornable, a neighbourhood on the city outskirts. Next to it was the Demenoy, or the Damenoy, gas reserve, a prominent natural gas source consisting of 4 large fields. As our motorcade made its way through Ornable district, I noted the neighbourhood's state of disrepair. The roads were bumpy and marked by potholes, while the buildings surrounded us appeared run down and dilapidated. The community had apparently endured a prolonged period of neglect. We came to a halt at the entrance gates to the facility. A sizable mural depicting the Gazom logo had been painted on a nearby wall. Adjacent to the mural, a group of individuals wearing blue work vests had assembled, holding what looked like protest signs. Serge skillfully parked the car, bringing our journey to a smooth and elegant conclusion. Gus greeted us warmly as we stepped out of the vehicle. "Good day, Mr. President. Welcome to Gazom's Narble operations. I trust Ministers Walda and Benewall didn't overwhelm you with demands." "It's a relief to have a break from all that, even if just for a little while." Good to see you, Gus." Perfect. That's exactly what I hope to accomplish. So, seeing what's under development here, during today's discussion, my job is to improve the conditions of places like these. Mr. President, I've been brainstorming a little something. The Gruni Rural Investment Plan. I reckon it's got the potential to breathe new life into our rural communities out in Gruni. So not too far away from Ravenous Island and all its new 200 bombers. We could consider a few things. For starters, we could give the farming business a boost with some subsidies, or we could steer towards modernizing existing farms with machineries and tech. Or, here's another thought, we could pour resources into developing crop breeds tailor-made for Grudy conditions. I had no idea where that was going. If it works out, we could roll this out across Sordland. He kept talking as he guided me into the Gazom building. Mr. President, I get the appeal of the Green Bill that's been making the rounds in the Assembly. But I'm telling you, if we put the brakes on that and funnel those funds into the Groony plan instead, we could make some real strides without spooking any potential investors. Considering our background, I think we will tell him that I grew up around people like the ones that this would help. If your plan works, I will back it. If it's solid, I want it to work. Then we're on the same page, Mr. President. To hell with the environment. Let's make sure they feel seen for once. Our talk was interrupted by a noise coming from outside the building. We looked out the nearest window. Former President Alfonso, was thrashing Serge with his walking cane. Oh no, it's a helicopter. Was cutting through the sky, sunlight glinting off its polished surface as it descended towards us. On it was our next appointment, Ewald Alfonso. Is that a helicopter? Or are you just happy to see me? Alfonso sure knows how to make an entrance. An extravagant show of wealth, isn't it? Hardly seems necessary. That kind of display plays well to investors, but terribly to farmers watching on state TV. Exactly. The optics matter. We just have to decide who we're trying to impress. Spectacle aside, before we sit down with him, there's one more assembly matter I wanted to raise. Actually, there's an idea. I don't know if it told us about because this is something that he set up midways through the first day or two, the Alfonso Foundation. So I'm wondering if this was added as time goes on. I'm still not sure if the codex updates as time goes on. This workers' rights bill. Look, I'm all for giving hard-working folk what they deserve, but isn't it a bit hasty to push this while we're still stuck in a recession? The way I see it, short-term wins might end up costing us big time in the long run. Gus, I get what you're saying, but isn't it high time we gave every worker, or made every worker, a member of the board? We've got to play this smart. We can't risk another economic blow. In my book, workers' rights aren't up for negotiation, no matter the economic climate. Heard a worker from Estord on the radio. Said he's got rights on paper, but nothing in his fridge. I see what you're saying, but isn't it high time we put people before profits? PvP mentioned. I see where you're coming from, Mr. President, but a prosperous economy helps everyone, the workers included. If we're all sinking, nobody's winning. If we overload businesses now, they'll shrink or shut down. Workers lose more than just rights, they lose jobs. Strong labour protections are the foundation of lasting growth. A secure worker is a productive one. Let's think of the option that signals progress without rattling the markets. We need stability and reform. We need stability and reform. That's the sweet spot. You bring the idealism, I'll help shape the rollout. Please come this way. Ewald and I have some exciting news to share with you. I have faith that you won't leave us hanging. Are you, after your convincing arguments, I should say, about the railway project, I was curious to see what else we could achieve. We still have to prove that you make returns on your deals, or you still have to prove that you make returns on your deals, like the Armadine investment. I haven't seen him since the inauguration. He really pulled back from public life. Yeah. I think he is fully focused on Gazom these days. His entire reputation is bound to this corporation now. Admittedly, I'm biased, but I do think Gazom is extraordinary. What's so extraordinary about another corporation trying to make a hefty profit off the back of the people? If he needs to be hands-on as chairman, then the business must not be doing well. I have no ill will against Ewald Alfonso. Why should you? Yeah, exactly. Why should I? Why did you even bring it up in the first place, Gus? I didn't bring it up, Mr. President. You did. As you know, he and I go back a long time. He isn't the sellout some Solace painted him to be. Shall we? He pushed open a door and walked down yet another hallway, seemingly in the direction we'd just come from. Like a maze, isn't it? That's Quinali architecture for you. The Republic of Quinel, commonly known as Quinel, is a strategically situated country predominantly on the Zinal Peninsula, in northern Zina, with a minor segment extending into southeast Mercopa. It is unique for being the only Zinian member of the Arcassian Treaty Organization. Religious landscape was profoundly reshaped in the 11th century when the Mauser invaders propagated Czarinism, a religion that is still predominant today. The Markians, during the Great Invasion of Mercopa, managed to seize most of the peninsula's northern territories. However, their advance was brought to a halt at Mostopol in 1582 by the Mauser Empire, therefore concluding the 29 Years' War. Is this Turkey? The hallways were lined with doors. Glass panels in them revealed workers in suits and ties, many of foreign origin, busy in their pristine offices. A stark contrast to the blue-collar workers outside working the machinery, transportation, and maintenance. A Quinelli architect is an odd choice. Some of Gazom's global hires are from the Republic, Once you get past the cultural differences, they're really quite gifted. Ah, here's the elevator. Ewald ought to be up there already. There's a separate entrance by helipad. So Gus punched in a code. Let's do this. The doors open. We drew our guns. Here we are, Ewald, my friend. Ewald Alfonso stood up from behind his chair. He had on a perfectly tailored suit that he wore as casually as pajamas. Gus, you old devil. It takes one to know one. As promised, I've brought our guest of honor. President Rain. I hope you enjoyed seeing our facilities here. President Alfonso, it's nice to see what you have built from the inside. The facilities appear to be in much better shape than the city around them. Greetings! I'm curious to find out more about where Gazom stands. Comrade President, your capitalist indulgences sicken me. President Alfonso, it's nice to see what you've built from the inside. It's fine. Nothing compared to the Gazom HQ in Hullsword, of course. Still, one of the standouts of the Maroon District, says Gus. Please, have a seat. Let's talk. We sat down. Some snacks and drinks were served. Multiple Gazom yearly financial reports were scattered on the table between us. President Rain, I am here because we have a great opportunity on our hands, a business arrangement that will benefit Gazom and Sordland alike. I also happen to believe that that current and former presidents of Sordland should stick together and share our experiences. Not everyone has been in your shoes, or in our shoes, I should say. This is indeed a business agreement, Ewald. Let's focus on that. Presidents sticking together, that's an interesting notion. Somebody send a helicopter out for Soll. Yeah, presidents sticking together, an interesting notion. Indeed, it is an interesting notion, President Rain. It's a shame that politics often stand in the way. Could do with a bit more of that, couldn't we? Former presidents, current presidents, all pulling together for Sordland, says Gus. As we discuss the future of Sordland, it is paramount that I comprehend your vision. The trajectory you set for this country will inevitably impact not just Gazom, but also Sordland's position on the global stage. I confess, I've been following the news from the Maroon Palace closely since leaving office. Your decision to deviate from a market economy is, let's say, not what I would have chosen. And I am puzzled that your administration has so far ignored the wealth of opportunities provided by the West. Meanwhile, I have not heard any indication of your leanings regarding the Kingdom of Rizia's interest in investing in Gazom. Dude, look, I only answer what comes up in the newspaper. I had a barbecue with Frank. I don't have time for the Kingdom of Rizia. Frank needed ribs. Yeah, see, look, I've yet to receive a comprehensive briefing on the matter. I prefer to maintain a careful approach and not make premature commitments. I'd rather not hand over crucial components of our energy industry to foreign entities. While the prospect of collaborating with a wealthy nation like Rizia is not unappealing, I am suspicious of their underlying intentions. Your wariness is understandable, President Rain. The motivations of nations like Rizia are not always clear-cut. Our utmost priority should be to ensure that any partnership we enter is in the best interests of Sordland. Gus says, your concerns, Mr. President, remind me of a time when I was working with OMEC. We were bringing in foreign investments to revitalize the local companies. There were protests, people who were scared of change, who thought we were selling out, but we weathered the backlash, stood by our decisions, and now the economy is unstable. Years later, those same people saw the benefits, the jobs we created, the growth we spurred. Change is always met with resistance, but in the end, it's the results that matter. That's a nice story, Gus, but we're not talking about a company here. We're talking about an entire nation. The stakes are much higher. Your experience with OMEC is very valuable to us, Gus. We do need to stay on course and see our decisions through. Change may be met with resistance, Gus, but it's our job to ensure that the people are with us on the journey. It's a nice story, Gus, but we're not talking about a company. You're right, Mr. President. But remember, a nation is also a conglomerate of sorts, of people, of businesses, of hopes and dreams, and of workers who can be crushed underfoot. As Gus finished his point, we suddenly heard the faint wailing of sirens in the distance. He waited for the noise to fade before continuing. Back to the topic at hand. It seemed we are at a crossroads with Gazom. The numbers tell a tale of struggle and potential. No need to sugarcoat it, Gus. Gazom is teetering on the edge of a cliff. Without significant restructuring, the firm risks plunging into insurmountable debt. My old friend Ewald reached out to me for assistance, out of respect for our shared history and my small stake in the company. I'm sure you couldn't, Gus. I'm sure you couldn't. The good of the country. That's all you've ever had at the forefront of your mind. I've always believed in the power of networking. I'm sure you've heard of Rusty Montoro, chairman and CEO of Rizian Royal Gold. Rusty and I go way back, and he's done quite well for himself. Back under Alfonso's government, I was able to broker a deal with King Romus Taurus. Thanks to my connection with Rusty, it was a win for all involved. Rusty Montoro, the Taurus family, the Rizian government, it seems like an impressively powerful alliance you formed. With all due respect, Gus, I'm not thrilled that you got Sordland in bed with a monarchy. The kingdom's connections to Rumburg isn't particularly reassuring either. So I've heard, Gus. I understand the need for strategic alliances, but let's remember our own interests. I'm not... Considering the way things are going with Rumburg, I am not massively impressed. Considering their ties to Rumburg. I hear your concern, but business doesn't always line up neatly with politics. Our deal with the Taurus family was purely about economic growth for Sordland. If the country got taken over by Rumburg, well, that was a different matter. Thanks to Gus's Rizian connections, investors from the kingdom are now interested in Gazom, a development that could steer us clear of the looming crisis. We've got an amazing opportunity here. The demand for gas is steadily increasing, from both international partners and the Sordish state. All we have to do is ensure a constant supply. The trouble is that right now, some of our fields are operating at only half of their capacity due to resource limitations, but we have significant potential for expansion, including 2 new fields that haven't even been tapped. With the right amount of investment, we can expand resource extraction, effectively fulfilling rising demand and ensure long-term stability and profitability. But that requires us to be willing to take risks and weather the storm. Now, that's a legacy worth striving for, wouldn't you agree? I'm intrigued by the untapped fields. What's the potential return if we invest in these new areas? Will the investment help keep Gazom from having to downsize its operations? I've seen enough corporate bailouts and handouts to know that it's always the big businesses that benefit. That's a risk, Mr. Alfonso. What if the investment doesn't pay out? Every investment involves risk, but this one is an easy bet. With proper investment and development, we project extremely high returns, and extremely high. The sound of sirens briefly distracted us. Through the window, we saw police cars driving down the street adjacent to the Gazom zone. We directed our attention to the meeting. Ewald looked at me. I appreciate your visit today, and despite our differences, your willingness to meet with me is noted. Throughout my journey, I held faith in collaborating with individuals who genuinely share my vision. The presence of the right allies amplifies our potential. Your attitude and choices as president has prompted me to reflect on the significant gap that exists between us. Regrettably, this divide could pose challenges to the feasibility of any prospective business collaboration. I'm not here for your approval, Alfonso. My priority is Gus, and, more importantly, the workers. Perhaps it's for the best, Mr. Alfonso. Your approach to business doesn't align with my vision for Sordland. Presidents need to stick together. Regrettably, the divide could pose challenges. I understand, Mr. Alfonso. It's important that we each stay true to our principles. Well, no, it's important that I stay true to my principles. It is a shame, and I do still believe that there's a way for us to work together. My priority is Gus. I'm going to say it's a shame. I appreciate your optimism, Mr. President. While this particular deal may not have worked out, I remain open to future collaborations that could benefit both our interests in Sordland. So this hasn't worked out? Okay. You're right, Mr. President. There's always potential for collaboration. Let's not close the door just yet. I understand that tensions are high now, but I have faith that we can find a solution that benefits everyone. However, for that to happen, I need to know, Mr. President, do you trust my judgment? I trust your advice. You've proven yours. No, you haven't. He hasn't proven anything. A reliable ally, and I believe we can find a way forward. Your judgment has been questionable at times. Reject deal. I trust your advice. You've proven yourself reliable. Thank you, Mr. President. I propose a compromise. If you promise not to tighten the current restrictions of the Energy Protection Act, we can consider our stance and keep the deal on the table. Mr. President, I am giving you a chance to prove your commitment to the people of Sordland, and most importantly, to the Board of Directors of Gazom. I hope you'll consider our offer carefully. This could be the beginning of a fruitful partnership or the end of a potential alliance. I was willing to throw the EPA out the door if it came before me. Ready to make history together, set our differences aside, and work together for the energy independence of our nation. This is like the stuff you see on LinkedIn. You've made a compelling case. Let's get this deal on the road. I can assure you that the EPA restrictions won't get any tighter. I was willing to throw the thing out the window. I'm glad you're on board, Mr. President. Mr. President, your assurances on the EPA front are much appreciated. This partnership is going to bring great benefits to all. If the Sordish government chooses to invest, I would have invested. You were talking about Rizia. I would have invested. Wait, no. I would have maybe invested. Maybe. I just wanted to express the fact that, like, it was risky. It would gain a voice in the broader company decisions, even as a minority stakeholder. Well, I don't have the money at the moment. Wait until the budget's over. The government could either liquidate its shares at a future date or continue to reap the long-term profits. A beneficial arrangement for all parties. Ewald walked back over to the window. He stood there, silhouetted against the vast expanse of the gas fields. After a moment, he turned back to face us. His gaze was steady, the expectation clear in his eyes. The time had come to make a decision. What? We're investing alone. Sordland will provide the majority of funds, and Gus will tell Rizia to back off. We'll co-invest with Rizia. We'll share the costs and stakes. I would like to do this alone. But if we co-invest with Rizia, then we have an opportunity to maybe improve relations with them. And we're getting Rizia involved in the country, so that's going to make them, hopefully, less inclined to see us invaded by Rumburg. We will co-invest with Rizia. A joint investment? A wise choice. It ensures steady funds for Gazam. I like the way you think, Mr. President. Sharing the costs with Rizia reduces our risk and strengthens our ties. It's a smart move. Before we dive into the celebrations, I've allocated time during the meeting for President Rain to discuss any concerns regarding Gazam's financial security. The Labour Union, along with the Communist Party of Sordland, has rallied substantial support from Gazam workers in Narble, advocating for improved local conditions. Alfonso nodded and looked at me. Mr. President, we need you to deploy the armed forces to put down the strikers. We need to address those concerns. They could jeopardize the administration. Our duty is to listen and take action. That's the mandate granted to us by the public. Gazam stands as a global energy powerhouse. It's only right they give somewhat back. We've covered a lot today. I believe we can wrap things up. I want to go home and go back to playing Disco Elysium. Our duty, we need to address these concerns. They could jeopardize the government. Together, we might discover solutions beneficial to both parties. Do you have a proposal in mind, Mr. President? Every worker a member of the board. The workers of Gazam need better housing, access to healthcare, and opportunities for education. As the leading industry here, Gazam can't ignore its responsibilities. The wages of Gazam's blue-collar workers need to be increased. They are the backbone of your operations. I expect Gazam to contribute significantly to local charities. Yes, again, give it all to the church. Give money to the church and they'll take care of everything. So this would be Walda's proposal, Kira Walda, and this would be Pascal's. Or Pascal. They need better housing, access to healthcare, and opportunities for education. As the leading industry here, Gazam can't ignore its responsibility. I'm afraid of Kira, so I'm going to go with that one. Mr. President, while I acknowledge your concerns, Gazam's primary responsibility is to its shareholders and the economic stability of Sordland. It's a challenging task to balance the needs of our shareholders and our responsibilities. I cannot promise you anything. Gentlemen, it's clear that we all share the goal of improving the situation in Narble. Let's continue working together to make that happen. Agreed. We expect to see tangible improvements. Agreed. Well, Mr. President, we're committed to... Suddenly, the meeting was interrupted. The quiet murmur of a conversation from outside the room grew louder, followed by the sounds of hurried footsteps. A member of the private security team entered the room, his face taut with urgency. Or taut. He approached Alfonso and leaned in to whisper something in his ear. Ewald nodded solemnly, his gaze meeting mine with a serious intensity. Gentlemen, it seems we have an unexpected situation outside. Some protesters from the Labour Union have hanged a mercenary. Katharina Horton and Dennis Staller, Sordish political theorist and politician who serves as the current leader of the Communist Party of Sordland. So they seem to be leading the group. Oh no, it's the water protests all over again. It would be difficult to leave the way we came without causing trouble. It's the water protests all over again when they locked in, when Joan Bruton's car didn't move. Well, that's a pickle. What's our move, Ewald? I have a helicopter, I don't care. A helicopter might be the safer option. I think we should face the crowd head-on. Is there no other way out? Trust me, I know this place well. The only other way out is through a dangerous hilly terrain or the sewers. Mr. President, I advise you to leave via helicopter just in case. I can stay back and update the crowd on the discussions today. Serge Volkner rushed in. Mr. President, I've discussed the situation with the Presidential Guard and the police security. They are advising us not to go out the way we came in. More police are on the way. You must make a decision, Mr. President. Everyone waited. The tense silence of the room stood in stark contrast to the buzz of the ever-growing crowd outside. Well, well, well. We have the newspapers. A word of caution. Co-investment in Gazam by Sordland and Rizia through... though marketed as a strategic venture, necessitates cautious optimism due to Rizia's ties to Grace. The immediate financial benefits are apparent due to lesser cost to the treasury, but larger implications of allowing foreign influence into our energy sector remain murky. United we prosper. Sordland and Rizia's combined investment in Gazam signals a fresh approach to international relations. Innovative co-investment boosts Gazam. So everyone's happy. State co-investment in Gazam with Rizia. So that's in the economy. We don't have any new situations. Bludish Freedom Front under new leadership. So the brother of Dwellin Arg seems to have... Awelin Arg has become the new leader. We've no other options, have we? We're halfway through the railroad. Will we live long enough to see the construction of the railway? We haven't seen the economic thing tick up just yet. Leave Gazam facility and Narble. Decide how to leave the facility. A volatile situation has emerged outside the Gazam facility, with a sizable crowd of protesters amassing. Their grievances, fueled by underlying tensions, present a complex scenario for us to navigate. The decision on our course of action could dramatically influence the outcome of this situation. We will address the protesters and leave via car. I will not step down. They'll never shoot me in my own gas processing facility. As we stepped out of the towering front gate of the Gazam facility, I immediately became aware of how tense the situation was. Gus Manger stood to my right. You leave in the helicopter. His silhouette barely distinguishable from the monolithic edifice behind us. Serge stood to my left, his eyes scanning the crowd with the precision of a hawk. The Gazam... I think it would actually be better if you left in the helicopter. The Gazam security had drawn their weapons in anticipation, forming a bristling wall around the perimeter. Is this going to be... Are they going to end up firing on the protesters? My presidential guard, in stark contrast, stood tall and unflinching at the entrance, shielding us from the sea of angry workers surrounding us. The shouts of the crowd were deafening and hostility palpable. Staller and Horton stood at the forefront, with fire in their eyes. With a deep breath, I prepared to address them. Gus extended a megaphone towards me. Today, my team are here to listen and engage. We are here to ensure Gazam becomes a beacon of growth, fairness, and prosperity for all its workers. My fellow swords, our presence today is not a guarantee of instant change, but rather an effort to better understand the complexity of the issues at hand. Good people of Narble, we are here not to placate you with false promises, but to honestly assess the realities and work towards practical solutions. Before you do anything too rash, I want you to take a good look around you. Look at all the guns trained on you. These three are fairly good options, but I'm wondering what direction they're going to lead, and we don't want to make too many promises. Well, do you know what? I will promise anything to get out of here alive at this moment. Telling the people that the matter is complex, I don't think they're going to appeal to that. I would like to say, good people of Narble, we're here not to placate you with false promises, but to honestly assess the realities and work towards practical solutions. I'm going to say that, which is probably the worst possible thing to say. Let's turn this impasse into an opportunity. Let's turn this impasse into an outpass, where you let me outpass to you to go home. A chance for real, impactful change. We are here to make that happen. We recognize that words are not enough, and only through concrete action can we begin to address the challenges you face. Today's visit, let's be clear, does not mean all your problems will disappear overnight. In fact, many of them will get worse. We recognize that words are not enough, and only through concrete action can we begin to address the challenges that you face. Empty words. I literally just said that. Rain, you've shown us nothing concrete today. We're fed up with your hollow rhetoric. All talk and no action, isn't it, Mr. President? How long must the workers wait for real change? Now hold on a moment. President Rain, I gave bailouts to the people. President Rain is committed to bringing about real change. His actions and decisions demonstrate this clearly, even if it doesn't fit your narrative. Is that so, Mr. Manger? All we've seen are decisions that favour the likes of you and Ewald Alfonso, not the common workers. How does the bailout? I bailed out the people. How does that? They bought crypto. It's not about narratives, Mr. Manger. It's about ensuring a fair, dignified life for the working class, something your policies have consistently failed to do. Change is often slow and gradual. Dennis. The focus here is not on narratives or images, but on real, tangible changes. It's a process, and we're on the right track. I understand your skepticism, Dennis, but I assure you my administration is devoted to bringing about better conditions for the workers. You're an academic and a lawyer, Mr. Staller. What do you really know about the struggles of the working class? Is that what we want to hit him with? Is that what we want to hit him with? Going on the offensive? And also getting slightly anti-academic. The focus is not on narratives or images, but on real, tangible changes. It's a process, and we are on the right track. Words, words, and more words. President Rain, what the workers need are bailouts to buy crypto, which I gave them. The working class of Sordland is still waiting for those actions. And what about the recent campaign finance bill, Mr. President? It's a direct attack on democracy, effectively silencing smaller parties like ours. It's clear from your lack of commitment to education that you don't fully comprehend the scope of the challenges faced by our workers' families. What lack of commitment to education? Mr. President, we demand that you support the upcoming Workers' Rights Bill. The labour force of Sordland will be watching your next move closely. Furthermore, we want reform. Reduce the election threshold. I'm literally bringing in reform. The people of Sordland have elected me to lead. I believe it's crucial to trust the government's judgment. Exactly, yeah. I'm the people. The campaign finance bill ensures fair funding for democratically elected parties. Just because nobody likes you, it's not my fault. I understand the concerns and frustrations many of you have. Rest assured that we are here, we are listening, and we are committed to addressing these issues. We must recognize that our country can't solve all its problems at once. We are working hard and making progress. How dare you speak that way to your president? You ingrates have no idea how much time and effort I put into making the sauce that those ribs marinated in for Frank. That's a lie, I didn't make that sauce. That was the chef. Yeah, the people of Sordland have elected me to lead. They didn't elect you to do anything. You couldn't even get 10% of the vote. Independents got in, and your party couldn't. Quiet murmurs of discontent begin to ripple through the crowd. The workers' faces seemed to turn even stonier. I could feel the tension growing. The presence of our guards did little to reassure me. Suddenly, a reporter pushed through the crowd, brandishing a microphone towards me. The locals of Narble have suffered under the impact of Gazom for years. What concrete steps is Gazom going to take for the benefit of the local community? The discussions with Gazom are an ongoing process, and I'm committed to finding the best possible outcome for the workers of Narble. I must admit, we haven't been able to make as much progress with Gazom as I'd hoped, but I remain committed to finding a solution. Rest assured, we are in contentious dialogue with Gazom. I remain steadfast in my pursuit of better conditions for Narble's workers. I think that's fair. I'm not going to dignify that with a response. Gazam has done so much for this shithole region. That's gonna go down well. The discussions are ongoing. I'm committing to finding the best possible outcome for the workers, or I remain steadfast in my pursuit of better conditions for Narbel's workers. Rest assured, we are in a contentious dialogue. It's going to be 1 or 3. Or, potentially, a sniper shot to the head. Or potentially, we just open fire in the crowd. Ism incident. You hate Soll because of the Ism incident. I'll give you an Ism incident. The discussions are contentious. I want the people to know that I'm holding them over a spit. I understand your frustration. Be assured, I will push harder in the negotiations. The well-being of Narbel's workers is my priority. The journey may be challenging, but I remain dedicated. Our workers deserve better, and I won't rest until we achieve that. At least you're not hiding your lack of progress anymore. Mere determination won't solve the workers' problems. We need results. And until we get them, we continue to fight. The crowd roared back to life. I could practically feel the raw anger emanating from them. My guard took a step forward. Time is a luxury we don't have, Mr. President. Each passing day is another day our workers suffer under the heel of inequality. The undercurrent of unrest swelled, threatening to surge into a full-blown tempest. The previous calm seemed like a distant memory, an illusion shattered by the harsh reality of discontent. The group of figures, or a group of figures, emerged from the crowd, adorned in unmistakable scarlet attire. The Red Youth had arrived. The sight of them triggered nostalgia, memories of days filled with protests and camaraderie during our time at university. I realized this was no longer a mere protest. It was a symbol of a broader, more potent struggle. The police began reorganizing their ranks, adopting defensive postures. Could you shed some light on the possible deal between the Sordish government and Gazam? What role does the Kingdom of Rizia play in this arrangement? Am I on trial? What the hell are you still doing here? Can't you see this is about to get ugly? In a show of international cooperation, Sordland and Rizia will jointly invest in Gazam. We're sharing the costs and stakes. This way we're reducing financial pressure and fostering international relationships, which we need. Sordland is renewing its ties with the Kingdom of Rizia. Together, we will provide the funding that Gazam and its workers need. Yeah, telling the communists that we're joining forces with the monarchy, that's going to go down well. I think in a show of international cooperation would go down well with... well, trying to get these devils in Rumburg off our back. Provide the funding that Gazam and its workers need. They're not going to be happy to hear that Gazam needs money. We're sharing the costs and stakes with Rizia. This way, we're reducing financial pressure and fostering international relations. A partnership with Rizia? Are you aware of the monarchy's history of stamping out disagreements with brute force? Are you aware of Rumburg's history of seizing land off of people that neighbour it? We will be watching this co-investment closely. Your government will be responsible for keeping its partners' worst tendencies in check. Close by, I noticed a tierce exchange between a security officer from Gazam and a member of the Presidential Guard. Serge craned his neck, his face deep in concentration as he listened to their whisperers. Mr. President, the situation is growing increasingly volatile. I recommend that we expedite your departure. We must prioritize your safety. Won't running away from this only make the protesters angrier? Serge is right, Mr. President. The crowd won't get any calmer if you stick around. You've got to get to safety. Leaving so soon, Rain? I guess you know when you've been defeated. You can't even face your own people, can you, President? We expected better. No, you didn't. You speak of double standards and yet fail to understand the complexities of governance. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but real change requires pragmatism, not idealism. You claim to advocate for the workers, yet you yet undermine their efforts to better their conditions. Shouldn't you be supporting the initiatives we've fought for, instead of spreading discontent? You claim to advocate for the workers, yet undermine their efforts for to better their condition. I'm not leaving with no comment. One final question. What is your true personal relationship with... Out of nowhere, a man lunged forward towards me from the crowd. Before I could react, Serge sprang in front of me. He swiftly tackled the man to the ground and pinned his hands behind his back. I think an attack from the crowd gives us justification to withdraw, and we can now blame it on these two. Serge, your sacrifice for the government, it's probably been in vain. Let's get out of here. Let's skedaddle. Serge left my dazed attacker on the ground and turned to the guards with a look of authority I'd never seen before.
Protect the president!
His voice carried over the screams of the crowd. The guards tightened their circle around me, hurriedly, pushing me towards the safety of the convoy. Staller, so the man who has worked the crowd into a frenzy, is now screaming, "Everyone remain calm." Police and security forces rushed into the melee, swinging batons with indiscriminate ferocity. The Red Youth rushed at them head-on. "Into the car, Mr. President. We are leaving now." Katharina and Dennis raised their hands in a plea for calm, their words nearly lost. You started this anarchy. Don't go appealing for calm now. Stop the cops. This isn't going to help. Back off. You're only making things worse, shouts Gus. The staff and I were swiftly escorted into the convoy. The protesters and police scattered as our vehicles ploughed through the crowd. Their screams receded into the background as we left the chaotic scenes behind. Well, I think that went well. I think that was one of our better meetings. We have the Stability Order of 1954 in order to stop the operations of destabilizing youth organizations. And as a victim of those destabilizing youth organizations, I think we'll be approving that. What do the papers say? Disruptive rebels mar president's address. I hope that journalist caught how the destructive influence of Katharina Horton, leader of the Labour Union of Sordland, and Dennis Staller worked the crowd into a frenzy until they attacked the democratically elected president of Sordland. I hope that is noted in the papers. I hope it is not noted that the president was absolutely terrified. A stirring speech by President Rain at Gazom Gates. President Anton Rain delivered an impassioned speech at the gates of Gazom, addressing the concerns of workers and championing the cause of better working conditions. The president's powerful address shows his dedication to the Sordish people, demonstrating his willingness to listen and respond effectively to their needs. The president's speech sets a precedent for transparency and open dialogue, marking a pivotal moment in our nation's journey forward. Why aren't you mentioning the fact that I was attacked? The Economist has nothing to say. The Lack of Times, unprecedented incident at Gazom HQ. At the gates of Gazom, a hostile individual lunged at President Anton Rain, prompting a swift intervention. Serge got a mention in the paper. That's nice. The alarming incident took place amidst tensions. Rising tensions drawing attention to the ongoing social unrest and struggles. Negotiations with Gazom yield no results, God damn it. Despite the high hopes pinned on the negotiations between Gazom and the workers' unions, the situation, they attacked the president. That's not going to work out well for them. The negotiations driven by the Labour Union and the Communist Party of Sordland, and facilitated by President Anton Rain, who they then attacked. What did these divils have to say? Serge Volkner, the working class hero. The recent incident where an individual lunged at the president brought an unexpected hero to the fore. Serge Volkner Future president, a bodyguard and driver by profession, Volkner risked his life to protect the president, reminding us of the working class's role in keeping the country running. Volkner, a true representative of the working class, stands in stark contrast to the privileged Anton Rain. Screw you! I came from an impoverished farming background. Gazom's in action, a betrayal of workers' rights. In a disappointing turn of events, Gazom has decided not to provide additional support to their blue-collar workers. So if we had pushed, I, like an idiot, pushed for the greater needs of the working class, I should have just backed the blue-collar workers. That was an option, and I said that we should push for education, healthcare, blah 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 blah. If I had just told what's his name? Ewald Alfonso, just give a pay rise to the blue-collared workers, then everything would be better. So that's the scenario that we find ourselves in. We're alive, and we now have an order to deal with the youth that are destabilizing our country. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode. Now, if you excuse me, President Anton Rain has to go and change his trousers.